अगर करना तो नॉर्मली रिकॉर्ड कर लीजिए, फिर अपलोड कर लीजिएगा।
जय श्री गुरुदेव की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we welcome all devotees today to the center for a program. I just want to just alert the devotees today that because I'm actually doing a class which is linked to a presentation, your seating position has to be such you can see me or you can see that. I don't want anyone to have neck problems after that. So you sit in such a way that you can if you need to see, you can see that. Don't unnaturally straight your neck. If something happens to your neck, you're not liable. So it's just to keep you informed. So thank you for coming because I see a lot of devotees sitting very close to me. I'm very happy with that. But it's just that I have some slides today, so it's not often I do that. But I think today's topic has a specific focus. The focus of today's topic is devotee care. But at the same time, it is Purushottam Mass. And we have started a very nice session for Purushottam Mass, which is a very auspicious month. And in this month, we want to cover the glories and pastimes of the mahajanas. Now, in our scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam, a mahajana is described as a great spiritual personality. Right? Jana means person, Maha means great. So mahajana, that means a very great personality. Not great in terms of material achievements, but great in terms of spiritual achievements. When we have spiritual achievements, whatever that we are lacking materially is taken care of by Krishna. This is the foundational principle of the 9th chapter. I think it's the 21st verse or 22nd verse. Ananyaschinte antamam ye janaha paripasate tesha nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Krishna says very nicely in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and this is a very important verse for us. He says that for those who perform Ananya Bhakti means Bhakti which is not deviated. Ananya means to be chaste, to go only in one path. For those who take up Bhakti, devotional service, in that mood of devotional service, Ananya Bhakti, to those devotees, right, they become very dear to Krishna. They become very dear to Krishna. So actually the only qualification needed in devotional service is that Ananya Bhakti. And so therefore, when we perform devotional service in that mood, then Krishna tells us, he gives us two guarantees. Yogakshema Mahamyaham. What he tells us is that whatever that you have, he says, I preserve. So when devotees take up bhakti, when you come on Saturdays, when you perform your devotional service, we should always have the faith, because Krishna has already told us that it is very clear that when we take the process of devotional service, we don't have to worry about our material situations. Sometimes people say, why are you so interested in devotional service? You're only 30, 40 years old. Why don't you wait until you get retired and then become serious about God? But we don't realize that by the time we get retired, some of us may not be in a position to remember God. And very often, right, psychology dictates a very important principle. And that principle is whatever you have lived your life as, after 30, 40, 50 years, it's very difficult to unravel it. Isn't it true? It's very difficult. Simple thing. Even if you have, we know so many devotees who have not gotten married because they wanted to be brahmacharis. At 45 years old, they wanted to get married. And I tell you, the time we spend with them in their marriage, not because we got married to them, but because they got married, but they can't adjust. 40 years of living brahmachari, and then he gets married. And it's very difficult, because you have lived in a certain way. So after 55 years of living in a certain way, then you retire and you start taking out money from your CPF, and then you become a devotee. It's not going to happen. It's very difficult. Which is why Krishna assures us, whether you're a student, whether you're a young child, in our center, so many children are becoming Krishna conscious. So amazing, isn't it? They're all so happy. But the parents are not telling them, hey, it's too early to start, wait until you retire, then you come to Krishna. No. In fact, parents feel the faster we give Krishna, the better they are cared for. Because Krishna cares for them. And therefore, Purushottam Mass is an important Mass because Krishna cared for a month that was abandoned by everyone else, an extra month, right? Purushottam Mass, Adik Mass, an extra month that did not belong anywhere. We think we belong in this material world, but actually, our sense of belonging is false. Because that which belongs to you, you should take even after death. And you should have, even while coming to this world. Both cases, you don't qualify. We are born with nothing, and we leave with nothing. So it's very clear that nothing belongs to us. So Purushottam Mass, this month, that was born into this world, she had nowhere to go to and no one to take shelter. And therefore she turned to the source of all sources, and the shelter of all shelters. That is known in Bhagavatam as Param Parayanam. And therefore, when she took shelter of that wonderful Param Parayanam, Krishna became so pleased with her, because he is the source of all shelters. And he turned to her and he told her that henceforth, because you took shelter of me, because you had full faith in me, because your bhakti to me was ananya, therefore I now bestow upon you the benediction that instead of losing, because she was already thinking she had lost everything, you will not lose anything. When you come and take shelter of Krishna, anything that you appear not to have, you will get. You will get peace. You will get great bliss. But the bliss that you get in this material world is temporary by nature. But the bliss that you get in the spiritual world is permanent by constitution. Very important. Very important. So Yoga Kshema Mahamyaham. This Purushottam Mass has become so glorious because only of one thing she did, Sharanagati. She fell at the lotus feet of Krishna and she installed all her faith in him. And Krishna did one thing for her. He elevated her to the status of the most auspicious month. The most auspicious month. Why? Because he became very pleased with her Ananya Bhakti. So, it is also stated in the same verse we just quoted, that to those who are devoted exclusively to Krishna, right? I think this mic is going to go. I don't know, all the mics are, is it the battery? Because Krishna is so great and so powerful and so caring, what happens is that anything that we have, he preserves. Material. You will not lose your job when you come to Krishna. You will not lose where you are when you come to Krishna. No one has come to Krishna consciousness and complained to us, Prabhu, the day I took up Krishna consciousness, I lost all my money in the bank. No. And if you did, we've got news for you, it may be good. But that is another story, right? But the point is, we don't explain too much. But the truth of the matter is, no one loses when they come to Krishna. And whatever that you do not have, whatever that you lack, Krishna will provide. Beautiful, isn't it? So if you are not good in something, if you take up Krishna consciousness, you become very expert at something. If you think you can't do something for Krishna because of your material life, you didn't do it, suddenly you come to Krishna consciousness, you find you can do it. Prabhu, do we have another mic? I need it now. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, so that's a very important point. Now, I said that because we want to understand this is the greatness of Purushottam Mass. And Purushottam Mass will go on till I think 16th or 17th August. Correct me. Is it 17th? 17th, right? 16th, is it? 16th. So 16th is last day, right? So in this month, every day light a lamp and offer it to Krishna. Chant chapter 15. Chant chapter 15 and offer it to Krishna. Because Krishna will be very happy with it. So today, we have a presentation on devotee care. And this presentation on devotee care is not a presentation, it's actually a class from Bhagavatam. But we're just using this because it's easier for us to show you some very important elements of devotee care. Sometimes people ask, what is devotee care? And why is devotee care important, especially in Purushottam Mass? Today, we are going to try and explain this from Sastras and from the leaders of our movement. No one will be staying in this congregation if they didn't feel cared for. No one will want to come for the programs if they didn't feel cared for. But what is devotee care? What we should expect, what we shouldn't expect, that becomes extremely important. Next slide, please. I want to start with a quote from His Holiness Kadamakanna Swami Maharaj, who departed from this world not too long ago. And for whose association those have taken will feel it was very inspiring. This is what he had to say about devotee association. A Vaishnava has to be someone with a heart. A Vaishnava is not just someone who chants many rounds of japa, or someone who knows many shlokas, or someone who gets up really, really early when the whole world is still asleep. This is all wonderful. But if that person, in spite of all these wonderful qualities, does not show a heart and does not have a heart, then he is not a complete Vaishnava. This is a very powerful statement, isn't it? So this tells us one thing about Vaishnava behavior and devotee care. If we really want to inspire others to come to Krishna, if you want to share Krishna with someone because you have got the bliss of Krishna, it's very important that we have a heart first. Actually, you don't have to go for a seminar to have a heart, right? First of all, physiologically you're here because you have a heart. But that's not the heart we speak about. The heart that we speak about is the heart of sincerity, right? Someone can tell if you really mean something or you don't. That means whether you speak with your heart or you speak without your heart. In Bhagavatam, everybody, all devotees spoke with their heart. If you say, Prabhu, I really mean it from my heart, then you know that it is coming sincerely. Nobody says, I mean it from my kidneys, from my liver. If you say that, people start thinking something wrong. Even if you say, I'm telling you from my mind, people will also start thinking, no. I don't think it's very sincere. So that's why Maharaj says that it has to start from the heart. Next one, people. Devotee care is actually defined in two ways. Care itself is defined as a virtue and a service. What do we mean by that? When we say it's a virtue, it must actually be a quality. You must have this in your heart before you can care for someone. You can't artificially care for someone. You know, sometimes you have, in the material world, you have what we call care consultants, right? You've heard of care consultants. They're supposed to care for you, make sure you're all right. They're trained to do that. The training is useful, but even the trainers there will tell the consultants that you must put your heart in it. Because if you don't, people will know that you don't really care for them. You just care for that salary that's going to come after you finish with us. Devotee care is like that. Nobody's paying anyone to come here, right? So far we haven't done that. In Abu Dhabi, my godbrother, in these desperate years of getting more people, he used to go to the dormitories where the laborers were. He would pay a nice luxury bus for them. He would pay them money to come for Janmashtami. Because they didn't know, that these programs were there. So initially he actually started paying for people to come. And they came. But once they came and they enjoyed the program, the next time he called for them, and he thought maybe he should give them some money. They said, no, keep the money for Krishna. You care for us. We are coming with or without money. The point is, when you have a heart, right, and you take devotee care as a virtue, then people will begin to understand that you actually care for them. But the beauty of devotee care is, you must have this caring feeling in your heart for someone. But it can also become a service. Because virtue and qualities and serving someone with those qualities become one and the same. You realize that? So every time a devotee has a mood of care and he has a mood of service, that service and virtue actually become the same thing. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. So how you serve someone is a reflection of who we are as people. That is the point. Next, Prabhu. The purpose of devotee care in our congregation here, we use the word GRS because it's Gita Reading Society. For those who are new, who have come for the first time, right? We want to tell you that actually we have a purpose. We're very clear about devotee care here. The first thing we want to do is we want to ensure that there is a culture, a virtue, where care pervades our society at all levels. Very important, at all levels. Yeah? And that just doesn't mean only the elderly. We want to take care of the elderly, but we want to take care of the children. We want to take care of the ladies, the men. We want to take care of the new devotees, the older devotees. We want to try and take care of everyone. That is very important. And we also want to support specific care services. In other words, if you come into the center for the first time, you should be warmly welcome, but we should also look out for you. And we should reach out again to you. If you've been coming every time, we must also continue to develop love, care for you. That is very important. Next one, Prabhu. So the area of devotee care is in two places. One is in your spiritual life. When you walk into the center, your spiritual life becomes our responsibility. And when you walk into the center, someone else's spiritual life is your responsibility. Please remember that. It's not that if you walk in, you must feel, okay, who's the person caring for me? The question we should be asking is, who are you caring for? You see the point? Right? Sometimes the biggest problem in our culture is the culture of entitlement. You know what that means, entitlement? Prabhu, if I come in, I expect people to smile at me. Everyone must say Hare Krishna to me. I'm senior devotee, I've been around 30 years, so you must treat me different from this person, from that person. That entitlement goes very against the concept of devotee. So my point to everyone coming in, don't only think of how people should care for you, but you should start devotee care by thinking how you care for devotees. Everyone should care for someone, and someone should care for everyone. That's the spiritual life that we are talking about. The second point that you see here is, sometimes as devotees, we want to talk only about Krishna. That's very true. But sometimes our material life also affects our spiritual life. Supposing someone comes and says, my job is affecting me, Prabhu. You can say, Prabhu, job is Maya. Don't worry about it, right? Why are you thinking so much about it? You're in Maya if you get worried about it. Just drop it. Leave it now. Prabhu, or someone comes and says, my husband is troubling me, or my wife is troubling me, my children are not listening to me. What do we tell them? Mataji, this is all Maya. Don't worry about it. Just keep chanting, it will go away. It doesn't go away. Only you will go away. Isn't it true? Because you won't stay. Your problems are not being addressed from Bhagavatam, right? From the spiritual perspective. So another aspect of devotee care is, we must care for devotees, not only in their spiritual life, but we should see how their spiritual life is impacted in the material world. That is very important. Don't forget, we are not only living in this world, right? But we are moving around people in this world. You cannot shield yourself away from people at work. Everybody's working. Nobody here is full-time devotee. Even if you're full-time devotee, you have to work with people who are not full-time devotees. That's the rest of us. So what are you going to do? So these real problems must be addressed in devotee care. Next one. They must be. And that's why there are certain principles of devotee care which are very important in Bhagavatam. These are the core elements, core qualities of devotees. And the best way to get these core elements that we must apply are the following. The first is the examples of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada's teachings, right? His instructions, his example is probably the best way to learn devotee care. When you have time, you can Google an article. It was an interview that a devotee had with Giriraj Maharaj. And Giriraj Maharaj speaks in that article about how Srila Prabhupada showed devotee care to ISKCON. Wonderful. And he gave such nice examples. One example he gave was Yamuna, Mother Yamuna. You all remember? She's passed on, but she was a very senior disciple. She was one of the great cooks of ISKCON. She served Prabhupada from the beginning of Krishna consciousness, the revolution of Krishna consciousness in the West. One time it seems in India, Yamuna Devi was suffering from jaundice. And because it was so bad, she had to be put inside a room. There was no space for her. She ended up in a closet area to sleep and rest for 6 days. And Prabhupada kept asking the devotees, where is Yamuna? Where is Yamuna? And they kept saying, she's not well, she's not here. But finally Prabhupada decided, I need to see her myself. And so on the third day, Prabhupada went and saw Yamuna in a closet. And when he went to see her there, he was appalled. And he was very upset with the devotees. You know what he did? He took her out there, he brought her up and got her a room just next to his quarters, which was in the airy area. Every day, Prabhupada would come out personally and treat her jaundice. He would get special bitter medicine, that they give normally in India, and he would give her that, and he would give her a bit of sugar cane, which she loved, and Yamunaji says, Viraj Maharaj says, that she became so touched by Srila Prabhupada's care for her, that she says that was probably what cured my jaundice. Not the medicine, but the medicine of care, you see. So this is a very important element of devotee care. Srila Prabhupada showed it. And he did that by instilling in us the concept of Vaishnava Seva. Vaishnava Seva means service to the Vaishnavas. And service, the best service, is to just ask the person next to you, how are you today, Mataji? How are you today, Prabhu? How are things with you? Just asking like that can open up a door to caring for someone. And that's why the third point is there. Loving relationships become the basis of devotee care. You cannot execute devotee care in isolation. Devotee care must be on the basis of loving relationships. You scold everyone, criticize everyone, find fault in everyone. Don't expect people to care for you. Please don't. You know why? Because people are human beings. How you act with them, if they are not mature, they will act with you in the same way. Then you'll be wondering, why am I the only person sitting there and why am I so lonely? Look at yourself. If you scold people in the name of chastisement, and if you don't have the adhikar to do that, then people are not going to feel valued. So we must be very careful here, because while we are asking for devotee care, we should first learn how to care for devotees. That's the point we want to put across. We want everyone in this room to be a stakeholder in devotee care, and not a recipient of devotee care. If you think I should be the recipient of devotee care, that's entitlement. If you think you should be a stakeholder and servant to care for others, that is Vaishnava Seva. You see the difference? So don't blame anyone. People treat you in such a way because of the way you are behaving, and you have to be very careful. If you feel you're behaving very well and people are not taking care of you, come and see me. And then I will talk to the devotees who are doing that. But very often I can tell you, where there is smoke, there is fire. Right? Where there is smoke, there will be fire. So loving relationships become very important. And how do you define loving relationships? Attentive listening. Very important. Hearing devotees is really the first step to devotee care. Everyone wants to be heard, isn't it? Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone has a story. And each one of us must learn someone else's story. Not for gossip. Don't use it as a weapon. Don't weaponize that. But use it as a platform for service. Everybody in this room has a moment of distress. Either you're going through it now, or you went through it yesterday, or it's going to come sometime. But it will come. And at that time, having someone listening attentively to you and trying their best to help you and serve you will make you feel like you belong. A positive sense of belonging. Very important. And when you have all of these, then you have a collective leadership. I use the word collective because everyone here is a stakeholder. Everyone should take care of someone. And this protection that you get will be empowering and proactive. You will not feel that you have to wait for devotee care to come to you. You will become devotee care for someone else. You see the point? That is how you actually feel nourished. Next slide, please, Prabhu. His Holiness Devakinandan Maharaj says something wonderful. If devotees see that this movement actually cares, they will be more confident to give their lives to Krishna, to give their lives to devotional service. Isn't it true? If we only know someone cares for us, even if it's one person, we'll keep coming back to the center. We'll do some service. Even if it's just one person. What to speak if we feel many people are caring for us? How wonderful that feeling is. So that's an important point. Next, please. So what are the values of devotee care that we must have? Just now we looked at all the platforms for devotee care, but we must have values. The first value is the wisdom and realization that we bring as devotees. That's why devotee care is very different from material care. Devotee care is fueled by spiritual wisdom. If your sadhana is good, if you're chanting nicely, if you're doing your regulated principles, if you're really serving devotees, devotee care comes very easily. You will also develop the expertise to understand that each devotee's care is different. We cannot expect everyone to be cared for in the same way. Everyone has a different need, and we must be able to identify it. That's very important. But we must do it affectionately and in a loving way. Sometimes the problem in ISKCON today is many of us are trained in the corporate world. And we don't realize we bring the corporate cold, impersonal way of dealing with people, the wheeling and dealing, we bring it into the congregations. And we do that sometimes even unconsciously. And that is very dangerous. We should be more simple. The corporate way of living in the outside material world is dog eats dog, or survival of the fittest. Prabhupada mentions that. Shukadeva Goswami speaks about that in the second canto, first chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. But here it is very different. Here what we must have is empathy. You see the word empathy? Empathy in Bhagavatam means compassion. That we must really be able to sacrifice something that we value so that someone else can benefit. That must happen. A simple sacrifice is like giving a bit of space so that one Mataji can sit down. That's sacrifice. Who's the one who's sacrificed? Kalamita, you did it, right? Very nice. That's sacrifice, right? It's a simple thing, but it's very important. You know, we've had cases where devotees come and fight and tell us they fought. You know why? Because one didn't give each other the space to sit down. It happens. They were just pushing each other for the whole class. It happens. So where's the devotee care? Because none of them decided they could go beyond and actually care for the other. They decided, no, you care for me first, then I'll care for you. How is devotee care going to happen? It will never happen. And that's why we must be generous in heart and grateful for whatever comes to us. If Aradhita now has a smaller space, she's grateful for that. Right? I have the most space here, I'm very grateful for that. But we should be grateful for whatever Krishna gives us. So even if a devotee helps us in a way that first we thought, oh Prabhu, I've got out of job. You need to get me a job. Now, we are not job placement agency, right? We try, but we are not. We can try to get them something. But if the devotee feels, oh, I felt I was not cared for. Why Prabhu? Because the Prabhu didn't get me a job. Now that is actually asking for a lot. But instead, if we develop in our heart the gratitude that at least someone tried to get me a job, then we are within the well-confined area of devotee care. You see my point? So you may be thinking devotee care is about how we care for devotees. It is. But it's also how we accept care from devotees. That is very important. Then we will feel cared for. Otherwise, the mind will keep telling us, nothing is good enough. They don't take care of me, they don't do this, they don't do that for me. What do you want? Red carpets? Flowers falling from the sky? What do we want? If we are simple, it is simple to care for us. If we are complicated, nobody will care for us. I have met devotee couples who feel that they are not caring for each other. But when I talk to them, I realize they are so complicated in life that I'm not surprised they don't care for each other. Because they just make things difficult. So you see, responsibility is not only for the giver of care, it is for the recipient of care also. Right? This is an angle of devotee care, next one Prabhu, that we very seldom see. Kavi Chandra Maharaj says something nice. We want all the devotees to feel that they belong and are important. Oh, by the way, do you want me to share this slide with you all? No? I'm very fine sharing. No? You know, that's the other thing in ISKCON that's very important. Srila Prabhupada said, you know, that whatever knowledge we have, we should share. Don't be proprietary about your knowledge. This slide, I only use it, you can't use it, you're going to pay me royalties for that. It is a very miserly way of living. Spiritual knowledge must always be shared. Always be shared. Don't feel, you know, that, oh, this is very special. There's nothing special about this knowledge. Any one of you can give better knowledge than what I am giving. So I'll share this with Devakinandan Prabhu and he can share it with everyone. Take it home, read it, because everything is here. Kavichandra Maharaj says so nicely, we want all the devotees to feel that they belong and are important. To feel that the leaders love them and care for them as individuals. Not just for what service they can do. See the point? As leaders, if you are now taking care of any services, don't be nice to someone because you can get something from them. No, that is not devotee care. You should care for someone whether you can get something from them or whether they give nothing for you. Even if someone comes to Krishna consciousness one day, you should care for him just like you care for someone who's been in Krishna consciousness for 10 years. You should. Because whether or not he or she stays is up to Krishna. It's not up to us. It's up to Jagannath. We don't have control over that. All we can do is serve someone. You know, it is stated in our Vedic conclusions that a guest is as good as God. And therefore, anybody who comes even once into our center is worthy of the highest care. That is what leadership is about. Devakinandan Prabhu, sorry. I think you need 4 hands now. Next quote. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. He brings up something very important. He's asking a question. Do you know the real reason why people turn to Krishna consciousness? Philosophy comes after. For people to open their hearts to the philosophy, they need to see an association that works. A community of spiritual people who support each other. What a nice point. And Maharaj has shown the world how a devotee community should go. One of the most successful devotee care communities are under Radhanath Maharaj, actually. Right? And between him and Niranjan Maharaj, they were the pioneers of devotee care in ISKCON. They were, right? And they continue to be. So Maharaj's question is a pertinent question. Philosophy is very important, no doubt. But the person conveying the philosophy is equally important. If that person has compassion and care and genuine affection and wanting to serve that person, then people will come together. They will feel that they are a community. Why are we coming back over and over again? Because we feel like we belong. If someone is new and he comes to the center and he just sits alone or she sits alone, and 5 years, 2 years, 5 days, 2 days pass, 2 weeks pass, and we see the person is new but they're always alone, and we don't go and talk to them, why would they want to come? They would leave. They would leave. Actually, they would leave. When I first came to an ISKCON center, it was in 1983. And I walked up the stairs and I went up. And the moment I went in, I had a shock of my life because people were jumping up and down. And I didn't know they were dancing. I thought they were just jumping. I thought this is some, gloomy place, that I went to. I read Prabhupada's books, but nowhere there Prabhupada said that people will jump that way. He just said dancing and chanting. Okay, fine, I thought dancing. But jumping? And then I wanted to come out. And the temple president said, he told me, jump. And I didn't know what to do. So I said, no, I'm not going to jump. And then I started going down the stairs. But one devotee came down all the way. He stopped his jumping. He was obviously in ecstasy. But he sacrificed his ecstasy and walked down the stairs to see me, talked to me and told me, don't worry, we don't only jump. We have nice prasadam, we have nice philosophy, we talk, I said, okay, fine, then I'll come up again. Now, if that devotee didn't care for me and go down and bring me up, right, I wouldn't be sitting here. You see the point? Just one time, just a minute of care has changed my life. That's the point. That's the community. Next slide, please, Prabhu. That's the community we're talking about. So now that you understand the big picture of devotee care, right, I want to spend a little bit of Purushottam. We were going to discuss the mahajanas, isn't it? And last week, I believe, we started, in a wonderful fashion. Swayam Prakash Prabhu spoke. Swayam Prakash Prabhu spoke on Lord Brahma. And very, very nice points were brought up. And I'm glad the recordings are available, right, Prabhu? So please hear them. Very important to hear them. Tomorrow morning, Govardhan Prabhu will speak, right? Sir Prabhu? Govardhan Prabhu is speaking. So for four weeks, right, we're going to concentrate on, we're going to try and do 12 mahajanas. There are 12 mahajanas. Let's see how many we can do. Today, I was supposed to speak on 2 mahajanas. One is Lord Shiva, and the other is Narada Muni. And I was thinking, I also had to speak on devotee care. and I'm only till 6:30. So how to speak, So I thought maybe we should look at the mahajans from the angle of duty of devotee care. Because that is a good way, maybe the next slide, Prabhu? That is a good way for us to understand, this greatness of the mahajans actually, right? So, by the way, if you're looking at all these beautiful pictures, I'll tell you that all these pictures, right, and all these slides were actually done by Sri Ram Gopal Prabhu. How many of you know Sri Ram Gopal Prabhu? Yeah. Wherever, he's now in Munich, I think, right? Wherever he is, I think he must be choking now because we are remembering him. But he must be choking well. He is the one who did all my slides on Srimad Bhagavatam, right? The entire Srimad Bhagavatam slides for National University of Singapore. And I've used it in so many preaching places and shared it with so many people who have used it in so many other places. But it's so nice. Every time I see a slide in Asian Civilization Museum, I know it's Sri Ram Gopal Prabhu. You see, this is devotee care, isn't it? He took so much pains to do these beautiful. In fact, when I used to present this, the students would come and tell me, "We like your content, but we like the slides better." I don't know whether it's a compliment or not, but it was very good. So that's the point, you see. So I'm happy to share this with you. And if you're doing any Bhagavatam presentations in any part of the world or on any topic, let me know. Right? For example, I have an entire slide, 25 slides on the glories of Purushottam Mass, and it's line by line by line. You just have to speak it, and it's all there. And I'm happy to share it with you. So please, right? Let me know. So let's look at Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva embodies the essential devotee care principles that we spoke about just now. Remember one very important pastime of Lord Shiva in Bhagavatam, if you remember, right, is how he saved, right, the Devatas and even the Asuras from the terrible poison. You all remember the name of the poison? Hara Hara. Doesn't it even sound poisonous? Right? Hara Hara. Yeah, it's very, very poisonous. And if you recall that the Devatas and the Asuras, they were actually churning the milk ocean. And as they were churning, Vasuki in the center, this poison was the first thing to come out. Before they could do anything, the poison came out. And both of them were choking. And poor Vasuki got the full bent of it, right? And because he was choking, nobody could really churn properly. So they didn't know where to go to and who to go to. And finally they turned to Lord Shiva. And when they went to Lord Shiva, they prayed at his lotus feet and they asked him for mercy to help. And Lord Shiva, without hesitation, he decided to do it. In 8.739 of Bhagavatam, he says this very nice point. I quote it because it tells us the glory of the Mahajan and the mood in which they are in. Pranai swai pranina panti, sadavaha shanam bhanguravi, baddha vaireshu bhuteshu, mohiteshu atma mayaya. This is what Lord Shiva tells to Parvati. People in general, being bewildered by the illusion energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are always engaged in animosity towards one another. But devotees, even at the risk of temporary lives, they try to save them. See? So the devotee care principle in Lord Shiva is very high. He is ready to sacrifice even his life to save the Devatas as well as the Asuras. Next slide, Prabhu. And Prabhupada writes a beautiful purport on compassion in 8.739. I won't go through the whole thing. You can do that. This is the characteristic of a Vaishnava. Paradukha dukkha. A Vaishnava is unhappy to see conditioned souls unhappy. Otherwise, he would have no business teaching them how to become happy. In materialistic life, people certainly engage in activities of animosity. Materialistic life is therefore compared to samsara dhavana, a blazing forest fire that automatically takes place. But Lord Shiva and his followers in the Parampara system try to save people from this dangerous condition of materialistic life. This is the duty of devotees, following the principle of Lord Shiva and belonging to Rudra Sampradaya. So Prabhupada says in the last line, Lord Shiva drank all the poison for the benefit of humanity. What a great principle of devotee care. We may not be in a position to drink poison, I don't particularly recommend it. But I would strongly encourage you that when you are in the center and when you're outside the center, when you're with family, when you're friends, when you're at work, if you see someone in difficulty, sacrifice a bit and help them. Prabhu, next slide. Very important. Because our aim in devotee care is to make others happy and peaceful. See what he tells to Parvati. My dear gentle wife Bhavani, when one performs benevolent activities for others, the Supreme Personality of Hari is very pleased. And when the Lord is pleased, I am also pleased, along with all other living creatures. Therefore, let me drink this poison, for all the living entities may thus become happy because of me. Because of me. You see? So, sometimes in the psychological world, we say you have a pleaser attitude. You want to please people all the time. But in Vaishnava world, we don't please people because we want some name and fame. We are pleasing them because we care for them. What is the difficulty in making life a little easier for them when life outside in the material world is so difficult? What does it matter, right? That's why we spend thousands of dollars on air conditioning. We could have turned on fans and tell all of you, you all are sadhus now, right? Don't worry, why you want aircon and everything? Let's just have fans. We could do that. We could do that. We could have just left this flooring and not spend this flooring for their lordships and tell Jagannath, be austere. We're just renting this place so that we don't have to spend so much money on you. Jagannath, he gave us this place and we don't spend money on him. That is not devotee care. So it's a very important principle that Lord Shiva is showing. Next slide. And caring means being prepared to sacrifice for another person. This is an amazing verse. Tapyante lokatapena sadavaha prayasho janaha parama aradhanam taddihi parpurusha akhila atmanaha. See what he says. It is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of people in general. This is considered the highest method for worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no higher way to worship Krishna than to serve the devotees, care for them, and care for the living entities. The living entities, because they all come from Krishna. So, there is one pastime of Lord Shiva as a mahajana. Now I have another pastime. Next slide, please. One more pastime. One last pastime. Lord Shiva and Daksha. Now, where was devotee care here, man? Was there? You all know the story very well, isn't it? Let's go to the next slide, Prabhu. Daksha was very envious of Lord Shiva. Very envious, right? And he was very envious because he thought Lord Shiva should actually organizationally be below him. He's Prajapati. And Lord Shiva is his son-in-law. So I don't care how much a big guy you are, in my house you are son-in-law. So you are lower to me. So when Daksha organized a big fire sacrifice, everybody stood up when he walked in, except Brahma, his father, which was allowed, and his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, who was seated there. Daksha did not like it at all. And already he was envious of him because he realized that the whole world was in awe of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is considered the greatest Vaishnava and one of the greatest of the Devatas. So he could not take it. And so before the assembly, Daksha criticized Lord Shiva. And look at how he said it. He turned to all the Devatas and said, please hear me with great attention. For I speak about manners of gentle persons, and I don't speak out of ignorance and envy. If we are not careful, we will do this. Prabhu, I don't mean to criticize you, but Mataji, I'm not chauvinistic, but oh Prabhu, actually, I'm telling you one thing. I'm very normally I'm very gentle, but now I have to fire you. That's how we speak, And Bhagavatam Daksha did the same thing. And then he said that Shiva has spoiled your name and fame by coming here. He has not accepted himself as subordinate, even though he is. So he's dishonest, but he's pretending to be an honest person. Look at what Daksha says after that. He has eyes like a monkey. Now, what has someone's look got to do with his behavior? When you speak this way, you're definitely envious. He says he has eyes like a monkey, yet he has married my daughter who has eyes like a deer cub. He did not stand up to receive me, nor does he think fit to welcome me with sweet words. He lives in filthy places like cemeteries. His companions are ghosts and demons. He has nothing that he wears. He's laughing and crying sometimes. He wears ashes, and his ornaments are nothing but garlands of skulls and bones. Quite a lot of criticism. Only in name is he Shiva, but actually he's a mad and most inauspicious creature. Imagine. And then he goes on. He goes on. On the request of Brahma only, I handed my wonderful daughter to him. Now he's saying, actually, I never wanted to hand over Parvati to him, actually. But because my father asked, so indirectly, who is he blaming? My father also is blamed here. Right? It's an indirect shot. Brahma is also blamed here. And then what does he do? He washed his mouth and cursed Lord Shiva. And he cursed him not to accept any of the oblations of the sacrifices. So this is an example of what devotee care should not be. This is not devotee care at all. Right? And yet Daksha is a Prajapati. And so, to cut a longer story shorter, the second time when that happened, right, Lord Shiva tolerated Daksha. And he walked away from the assembly. But the next time, Daksha grew even stronger, more envious. Because he thought, my Lord Shiva didn't oppose me after I did that. Let me organize a bigger program. And in that bigger program, invitations were sent to everybody except Lord Shiva. So Parvati Mata comes to see Lord and tells him, my father has sent invitation for a grand, big celebration in Yajna, but he has not invited us. I want to go. My sisters are there, my mother is there. I want to wear some nice jewelry and clothing, which I have, by the way, not worn because we are not staying in a big house. So can you please let me go? And Lord Shiva said, you can go, my dear Parvati, but you will never come back. Because you will become so upset with how your father speaks, that you will not come back. But she didn't hear him, and she went. And he said Nandi and everyone else to follow her. And when she went there, she found it was really true. Daksha completely ignored her. Talk about devotee care. That's one thing we should never do in the temple. In Bhagavatam it is stated, it is better to tell someone on their face what you don't like than to neglect them. Neglecting someone is more painful than being straightforward and not liking someone and telling them that. Because it's a very painful thing. And Sati felt completely neglected. And she became very upset. She told them, Daksha, Lord Shiva is such a great personality that he only sees good in everyone. You are the opposite. You're such a lousy personality that you see nothing good in anyone. Lord Shiva has not a single fault in him, and yet you can find fault in him. My name is supposed to be Dakshayani. Such a nice name, right? Dakshayani. I'm coming from Daksha. My seed, my genes are from you. But now I'm ashamed to have it now. Why should I be of you when you have behaved this way? You don't exhibit any care, any compassion, any love for someone who is so easily pleased. Someone who is so compassionate. And therefore, this body is not worth it. She sat facing north. Bhagavatam is so precise that Bhagavatam can even tell you what sari she wore. She wore a sari that was saffron because it is the color of renunciation. She sanctified herself with water and closed her eyes, and she absorbed herself in such a way that she self-immolated herself. She just ended her life there. She cleansed her mind and thought, remembered Lord Shiva, her husband, the greatest Vaishnava, and she left. And amidst all that, look at the last line. Daksha remained unfazed, unperturbed, and heartless. That's how he was. When Lord Shiva heard what had happened, he decided, I think now it's time to exercise a little bit of devotee care. But it's a very different devotee care. What did he do? He decided, let's do one thing. Let me now, the followers came back. They were stopped by Brigu and others. But they came back. And Lord Shiva then, from a strand of hair, took out a powerful being known as Virabhadra to bring justice to the scene. Virabhadra went to the same place. Next slide, please, Prabhu. The same place, the same area. And there, Virabhadra did something very powerful. There were terrible omens in that area, by the way, the sacrifice. Daksha had just seen his daughter just dying in front of him, but he didn't care. He wanted the sacrifice to continue. But as he stood there, thinking that everything was fine, inauspicious omens came. The sky was dark, jackals were howling, vomiting blood, and everyone realized something was going to happen. So at that point of time, Veerabhadra and all of the hordes of Lord Shiva, they descended on this fire area. Veerabhadra tore off the moustache of Bhrigu Muni, right, as punishment. If you think it's not punishment, try pulling out somebody's moustache. I won't recommend it. Mataji, don't do that to your husband. But if you do that, they will tell you it's the most painful thing in the world. Veerabhadra took out the eyes of Bhaga because when they were doing, when what happened was when Bhrigu was cursing Lord Shiva, Bhaga was moving his eyebrows up and down in glee. So therefore, he took out the eyes. Veerabhadra knocked out the teeth of Pusha because he was smiling too much when all that was happening. And the smile was also wiped out. Next one, Prabhu. Veerabhadra then placed Daksha's head on the wooden device in the sacrificial arena. And he gave him a good, clean death. He beheaded him completely. Veerabhadra then raised the head of Daksha triumphantly and threw it to the southern side of the sacrificial fire. Why southern side? Because Lord Shiva's southern side is auspicious. He's known as Dakshinamurti. It is an offering to the Lord. And then they departed. So you're wondering, where is this devotee there? Next one, please. The terrified members of Bhrigu and all those in the assembly, they had no Daksha, no leader. They all came to Brahma, and Brahma went to see Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva was seated very peacefully in meditation, like nothing had happened. He offered prayers, Lord Brahma, and requested Lord Shiva, please restore Daksha, restore Bhaga, restore Bhrigu, and restore Pusha. Please do that. Next one, please. And Lord Brahma said something very, very nice. This is a very important verse. We should keep this verse in mind. Because if we don't behave ourselves, and if we don't get the virtue of this, what the verse is saying, we will never learn how to be caring, and how to be compassionate. Pritagdiya karma drisho durashaya parodayena pidaritrujo nisham paranduruktai vidudanti aruntadas tanma vadiddaiva yadan bhavatvidaha. See what Brahma is saying. Brahma is saying that persons who observe everything with differentiation, one standard for you, one standard for me. I can scold you, but Prabhu, nobody can scold me. I can raise my voice with you, but you cannot raise my voice with me. I can take whatever I want, but you can't take whatever you want. That's differentiation. Persons who are only attached to fruitive activities. I'm coming to the temple, I'm doing service, I must get something. I must get something. That's fruitive. Persons who are mean-minded, never see good in anyone, who are always pained to see someone doing well. If you see someone singing nicely, giving class nicely, maybe putting a nice tilla, be happy for them. Learn from them, serve them, and not become envious of them. And if you give distress to people by uttering harsh and piercing words, this harshness is a demonic quality. There is no place for harshness in devotee. And any devotee who is harsh with another devotee must really seriously think carefully. So you're wondering, but we saw something much worse than harsh. This is an R21 situation, isn't it? Right? Behaving someone. What is Lord Shiva doing? But at the end of it, what does Brahma say? Brahma says, persons who have this kind of disposition like Daksha, there's no need to kill them. They are killed by material nature. Next slide, please. They are killed by material nature. Now hear what Lord Shiva says. Lord Shiva says, my dear father, Brahma, I don't mind the offenses created by Daksha. Actually, I don't. They are childish and they are less intelligent. I don't take a serious view of what they do. I have punished them only to right them. And then, this is a very important point. What Lord Shiva did to Daksha is not considered in Shastra, right, as revenge. Lord Shiva is such a pure and exalted personality that when he was insulted, he let it go. But when Sati, right, was immolated and Daksha's pride was growing, he decided it's time to check his pride. That is devotee care. That is very important. And we must develop a congregation where we are honest with each other. If we see something that is not right and we have a relationship, be open to hearing from devotees that something you're doing is not correct. It actually means well. But how we say it is important. You and I are not Lord Shiva. We don't have Veerabhadra at our disposal. And we're not going to go around chopping people's heads and throwing them to the south. We won't do that. What we can do is if someone is not doing something right, bring it to their attention if you have a relationship with them. And those who are hearing from these people, don't be ultra sensitive and don't be egoistic that you cannot hear that what you're doing is not right. If you cannot hear because you feel you're entitled not to hear, you will never be a recipient of devotee care. Very important. So devotee care is very important in the last two paragraphs. The devotional attitude of wishing welfare to someone is what Lord Shiva had. Devotee care also focuses on reforming someone and correcting them. Next slide. Then Lord Shiva decided, let me give Daksha the head of a goat to remind him of his true position in life. He then went to Bhaga and gave him the eye of Mitra to see the world. Pusha, he had no teeth, isn't it? So he had disciples. So the disciples would have to chew and they would give him something, from what he has chewed, what they have chewed. And Brigu, that goat head became very useful because he just snipped off the beard and transplanted it to Brigu. And Brigu had some hair on his chin now as a beard. I really like this part. So Lord Shiva restored the situation to normal, even though he was criticized heavily. You see the point? It looked very heavy, but ultimately it was for their purification. So, my point is this. In devotee care, we have to balance two things. We have to be caring and compassionate. But caring and compassionate doesn't mean mollycoddling. You know the word mollycoddling? It doesn't mean I just spoil you even though you're doing everything wrong. Just because I'm afraid that, if I say something, you will become angry. Lord Shiva could have said, I won't do anything to Daksha. Don't want to do anything. But he did it because it was better for Daksha. Look at the last slide, Prabhu. Look at what Daksha says in his prayer. This is what Daksha says. When his head was joined to his body, he came to his senses in more ways than one. Right? Not just because he became alive, but he became humble. And see his point. I did not know your full glories. I threw sharp arrows of words at you in open assembly, but you did not take them into account. I was going down to hell because of my disobedience to you, but you took compassion on me and saved me by awarding punishment. I request that you be pleased by your own mercy, since I cannot satisfy you with my words. And see the last point that he says. Just press again, that will come. I committed a great offense against you, but you are so kind that instead of withdrawing your mercy, you have done me a great favor by punishing me. We don't have time for Nardamuni today, but maybe I'll work out with Universal Prabhu that we will do Nardamuni another time. Because Nardamuni is another carer of devotees, and I have him in a few slides, but time is of the essence. But let me take this time now to wind down for the next 2 minutes. We've learned a different element of devotee care today, haven't we? Devotee care is really about being compassionate and caring. It's really about looking after not just the spiritual welfare, but the emotional, the mental, and even the material welfare where we can. But ultimately, devotee care is driven by your own purity. The better we are as devotees, the better platforms we become as instruments to care for others. This is very important. Never think that we have the capacity to care for others. Always think that we are instruments of Krishna. And Krishna is the ultimate carer of devotees. How much Krishna in his Leelas cared for devotees, didn't he? For the residents of Vrindavan, in every junction of their life, he cared for them. Every demon that came, Krishna protected the residents of Vrindavan. Kavya gave trouble and Krishna decided, let's chastise him. When Govardhan, when Indra came with the Samantaka clouds and it was so powerful, Krishna just took that beautiful hill of Govardhan and for 7 days and 7 nights, he gave shelter to the residents. That's why the residents said, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabhaga. Krishna, you are the most fortunate, but so are we. You're most fortunate because fortune is always with you. We are most fortunate because you're always thinking of us. What a beautiful one. In the Pracheta spree of the 4th canto, 30th chapter, he says, Namo Vishuddha Sadvaya, Hare Hari Medase, Hare Hari Medase. It means Krishna day and night is using his brain to think about how the living entities can come back to him. That is how we must live devotee care. We must think day and night about how we can help that person to come to Krishna. And for those who are closer to persons like friends, use that strength that you have as a friend. Use your social skills, use your warmth, your compassion by actually making others who are coming to Krishna feel that they belong. But at the same time, remember, devotee care is also not about spoiling devotees. It's also about stopping the idea of entitlement. I have come to Gauranga Center, give me all my privileges. I need all this. I don't get this, Prabhu, devotee care is zero. Don't think that way. You will never get anything. Because this is not your center, and this is Jagannath's center. And if you come as a servant. Come to serve, not just Jagannath, but come to serve everyone else. So, who is the carer of devotees in this congregation? Who, Prabhu Mataji? Who? Everyone. Is that very clear? That's the point of devotee care. Everyone cares for everyone. Then the devotee care team, who's going to come on board now, will have their life much easier. Okay? Otherwise their life will be very difficult. Very difficult. So I will stop here now, right? And thank you very much for hearing. I hope you found this point of devotee care on the basis of Bhagavatam and from the point of a mahajana to be very illuminating. You see, Bhagavatam is so wonderful a literature. It has wisdom. Doesn't it have humor? Isn't this whole episode very powerful, but very humorous also? Will you ever forget how his eyebrows were torn and moustache was torn and teeth was gone? No, you tell this to children and they laugh, they have a good time. Of course, they don't throw people's heads to the south, but they are very happy. So Bhagavatam is really so relishable. Everything can be found in Bhagavatam, including devotee care. Now, I would like to hand over my time now to Radhika and to Madan Mohan to come forward. Madan Mohan, Prabhu, are you all ready? Radhika, you ready? Okay. Prabhu, do you have the slides? Okay. Just give 2 minutes. Are there any questions? While we get, Prabhu, you get it prepared and then we'll get the question going. Yes. It's okay.
Thank you, Prabhu, for such an enlightening class. So, just wanted to hear from your elaboration of what it means to have responsibility of receiving devotee care. Because I think you said it's not just the giver, but even the receiver should be responsible.
Very good point. Thank you for putting it very nicely, Prabhu. The responsibility of a receiver of devotee care is to have gratitude, is to cultivate a mood of acceptance, and to not to take for granted that whatever that is coming, right, is just coming. It is coming because of the mercy of the Lord and the greatness of His devotees. If someone can cultivate that mood, then that person who receives devotee care will be very enriched. Because they will see even the smallest gestures of devotees as the sweetest gestures. Otherwise, living in a material age of entitlement where we're always asking for more and more and more, nothing will ever satisfy us. You see, Vamandev gave us this idea. 3 paces of land with his small feet. Because he said that if I ask for anything more, I will never be satisfied. So devotees should live on the Vamandev principle. That whatever that we have been given, we should be very happy and satisfied with. And if we do that, we will learn to see even the smallest gestures as something wonderful. Instead of seeing a black spot on a large wall, we look at the white wall and just see a small tattoo. It's a change of perception. Is that helpful, Prabhu? Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Okay, now we are ready for devotee care. Now, we have a devotee care team, right? And the team is led by Madan Prabhu and Radhika. And we have a whole set of devotees who are also working with them. And let them explain a little bit more